Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Wayward Pines, Season 1, Episodes 5 and 6. So these are the big reveal episodes to really tell us what is going on within Wayward Pines. And we have Ben, who is to get the absolute truth. But then Ethan is to have to also get some truth as well. Because when really looking at it, this guy won't stop until he gets his answers. And so I'm assuming at some point that eventually people are going to know and people are going to spread this all around. And we're going to be basically right back to where a character has told us within these episodes that things have gone before within Wayward Pines. Technically. So, with that said, I thoroughly was like, man, this is like the Matrix kind of reveal. And, like, I thought that was so interesting and so cool to have them kind of keep pulling back and really going on and making us go, what, huh? Like, how, like they're giving us little spoonfuls of this and little spoonfuls of that, but then eventually they have to really break it down to us and tell us the absolute truth. And then we're like, oh my god, like this really happened. So with that said, yeah, like really was so pleased to finally get some answers about what's going on in Wayward Pines. And also to have just some interesting story kind of going on here. That really seems like this show really has like a bigger budget than I originally thought. So that was great. So with that said, really there's not much that I can say as far as the cryptic sense goes, because this is like telling you what all's really going on in the show. And they focus on that throughout these two episodes. And so it's really hard to go on and say what else is going on besides telling you what the real truth is. So here's what I can say. So Ben is going off to school within these episodes, and he is to meet two other people, both Reed and Carrie, who are new to this school and are going to go through this orientation. And we have, of course, Megan Fisher, who is to be this hypnotherapist, who is to go on and tell Ben, as well as these students, the truth about everything. And we have Ethan that is to go on his own to go outside of Wayward Pines to investigate, discover, to eventually have someone coming in his way to reveal his true self and have to finally tell Ethan what's really going on. And Ethan is to also get wounded because he is to have to find out what is beyond that door, that gate. And he is investigating and understanding. So within episode 6, we really have Ethan going on and going with this certain person who's going to reveal himself and tell him about this complex and this compound, and go on and tell him how Wayward Pines is to be run, so to speak. So, being very vague, but I forcibly have to, I'll say more within spoilers. Hopefully, if I remember all of this, because there's a lot to go on and get through here. But not only that, Teresa is to start her retail job, her realtor job. Not retail, because that's a whole different thing. Realtor. So Teresa is to go on and have to show off this home to a guy and start asking him what he was to go on and see. But not only that, have Teresa, who is to go on and try to tell this guy some possible truth about what's going on in this town while no one else is listening or no one's looking. And so I thought that was really interesting. And in the next episode, we go on and we have Teresa, who's told things here and there about these kind of secret things. And so Teresa is starting to investigate them. And her boss, who is to be Big Bill, some people might remember the guy who plays Big Bill in this episode from the Robin Hood movie, the Kevin Costner one, as the friar in that film. Because when I immediately saw this guy, I'm like, oh yeah, like I just recently saw Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, recently anyway. So like I was like, oh yeah, it's that guy. It's Michael McShane, who plays Big Bill in this show. I'm like, wow, what a small world. So yeah. So really, that's kind of what all happens in this one. We have Teresa and Kate having this conversation that Kate is to tell Teresa within these episodes that they're going to have, like, regardless of what their past is, they have to be stronger friends than they ever were now, because Kate may at some point need Teresa, because it seems that Kate is going to go on and maybe start a rebellion, it seems. Like that might be going on and giving away a little bit. But if anything, there is to be a lot to have to give away in spoilers. So there's that for you. So with that said, let's just go into that double 5 time territory. Let's go into spoilers. Man, was these episodes just really good. And so I'm hoping that every single one of these episodes is just going to build and build and build and just be like, man, this is really interesting. Because I always thought that this show was like really good, and then I like kind of took a hiatus, and then I was like, but man, like once we get back here, here's where the show like really picks up. Because I felt maybe the other 2 episodes were just kind of like these filler kind of things, and there wasn't much going on to do with those. But like these episodes, are like, man, we're back to this being really good. So with that said, let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time we spoil this episode, or these episodes. So we have Ben, who is going off to school. Teresa is to seem to want to go on and take Ben to school, or possibly not have Ben go to school, because Teresa is just wanting to just wait things out. And Ethan is going on into this woods to try to discover what exactly was that barking noise, that dog noise, that growling from episodes before. And come to find out, Ethan is to make his way out of Wayward Pines and discover what's really going on. And Ethan, within this episode, is to discover a monster, of course, that looks very human-like, and I'll go on and I'll help you understand why that is. So Teresa is to be talking to Ben, and so Ben is going on and saying like, well, hey, maybe we should just kind of move on. Like, you guys are just kind of waiting and hoping that things are going to just change. Like, how about you guys just kind of, like, with what we have now, let's just kind of move on. So, Teresa's like, well, yeah, Ben is probably right. And maybe I can find some answers simply by going on and doing my job. So, Teresa is to go on and be a realtor and is to meet her boss, who is to be called Big Ben, who Ollie is to go on and give this woman a bunch of like terms of endearment kind of things, like going on and calling her sweetie or hun or something like that, which I'm like, man, that is honestly like very like, it's uncomfortable, especially when realizing that like this woman is to be married and he's honey and sweeting her and all this kind of stuff, and that's kind of very weird. But I think Big Ben is just a guy that just doesn't care, or is to realize like, well, hey, like I'm the only real like guy in town like who's doing this job, and so it's only a matter of time before maybe like something goes too far and Big Ben may get possibly reckoned like anybody else probably would, or eventually they go on and they start to pick and choose who reckons whoever at some point in this story, it seems. But anyways, pushing on. So, because it seems like there's gonna soon be like a civil war going on within this town. So, with that said, so Ben is to go on and go with Amy to school, as like Teresa wants to go and walk Ben to school, and Ben's like, "What do you think is gonna happen in this town? What do you think is gonna happen to me? Like, my school is only like a 5-minute walk. Like I think I'll go on and I'll easily be able to make it to the school without anything happening to me." So, because Ben has already been here a number of days and like he hasn't been like he hasn't horribly been treated badly in the last few days, so Ben is to probably put his guard way down, just because it's like, well, hey, like it doesn't really feel like we're in danger, so why is it that like this family is to treat it so much that way? And also Ben is to probably have a better life within Wayward Pines than he probably did in his other life that he is to, of course, have. So let's focus on Ben going to school. So Ben is to go into school and immediately be called to go to this orientation. So we have Ben, we have Carrie, we have Reed, who are going to this orientation. And so Megan Fisher is to go on and tell all three of these people the real truth. So Megan sits all these kids down and is to go on and tell them that there had been 3 kids who had gone on and been in the same seats that these kids were in before. And these were the first 3 people in this town going on and doing the same orientation that these kids were. And so Megan is to go on, and I'm not going to say like all of everything that goes on in these 2 episodes like the show. Like, I'm just going to go on and just start plopping down things that eventually was said here. And so Megan is to go on and tell the kids that there is to be a threat that they may not even be aware of, and the people of the town are to call this threat Abby, short for aberrations. Come to find out, we have these aberrations that are to have somehow become these monstrous human-looking monsters, because the truth of it is is that these monsters have somehow evolved from Homo sapiens. And so Ben and all the kids are like, wait a minute, like, this can't be true. How is it all of a sudden like these are just things that are here now? They just appeared out of somewhere. This doesn't make any sense. And so Megan is to go on and give all three of these kids coins. And so Megan is giving them coins, and they're like, man, these coins look really old. Like, I think we have Ben who's saying that, like, these are like with the decay of how this coin looks, it looks like a Roman Roman coin from a long time ago. So Ben all of a sudden is to scrape the coin because he wants to know like what possible year this coin was made, and come to find out that this coin is a regular quarter that was dated 2095. And so Ben is like, wait a minute, 2095? The year is 2013. What are you telling me? So Megan is to go on and drop the fact to Ben, Carrie, and Reed that they have been all put in a cryostasis for seemingly more than 2,000 years. And so the real year is actually 4028. It's like, what? What? So, come to find out, they break this down even more so in the following episode to have us realize that a lot of the stuff that we've seen in past episodes were actually done to them, to certain people, to get them here thousands of years ago. And I just find that to be just crazy. So we'll get into that. So there have been some evolution that has kind of gone on here. And so Megan Fisher is going on and telling these kids that there is to be this man called David, who was this scientist who started this whole Wayward Pines project, and he is still here, he is still alive, but these students will never see him. Like David, I think his name is like David Palmer, or David something. So we now go on and have these kids being dropped like this massive thing of information, which I didn't even quite understand right away. But then when they go on to further explain it, I'm like, oh, okay, this is some shady stuff that they pulled. But man, to I guess like they went on and did this to like save the world, so to speak. So we have Ben, who is to be told this secret, and Ben, of course, like from episodes before, was to say, it's like, well, hey, like, why is it that everybody's like talking to me? Why is it everyone is being nice to me? Like, why did Ben have it seems to have a girlfriend so quickly? He was so baffled and so confused by this. But now coming on and realizing it, that like these generation of people who are all students are going to have to all come together because they're all holding the secret from the adults, because there's only a certain number of specific adults who know the true whole secret, because supposedly there's a whole reason for that, which goes into the other episode. So I was like, oh my god, the pin frickin' drops right here to just tell me that, oh no, like, it's year 4028, just so you're aware, it's not 2013. So let's go and talk about what Teresa does in this episode. So Teresa goes to work with Big Bill, and Teresa's have to go on and is to have a newcomer guy to Wayward Pines go on and get a home, get a house. So we have Teresa that is going on, and I believe giving Wayne, I think, Peter's house. So, because once you kind of just kill people, you end up just kind of getting their house. So, who knows how many times, like, these mailboxes have eventually been repainted over and over and over again. Because, man, like, how many people eventually just get killed off for one reason or another, to eventually just have them usher in new people that probably have a certain set skill that would eventually go on and help people somewhere down the road. So that's what kind of interests me to just go on and say, like, okay, how is it that so many of these people, like, how is it that certain number of people have, like, lived so long? Or eventually there's just a certain set of people, but we'll get to that in a second. We'll get to it. It's just the whole math of it is just like, wait a minute, like, if all these people were alive during a certain number of year, how is it? Huh? But wait a minute. Let's go further. So Ethan is in the woods, and so he is to see this deer, and so Ethan is to go on and put this deer and put it out in the open, and one of these abbeys are to go on and try to scarf down on this deer, and Ethan is to just kind of look at this thing and kind of look at through this hole where he's safe, and he can just kind of watch as this abbey is eating this thing and running off. So he's like, oh my god, what is that? So Ethan is to go further and further into the woods, and eventually a helicopter is to land, and all of a sudden we have Dr. Jenkins, who is to come out of this helicopter and tell Ethan, it's like, well, hey, like, we've never seen somebody get out this far, and so, like, you know what, Ethan, I think it's about time we just kind of tell you the truth. Like, because when really looking at it, the previous Sheriff Pope, knew the truth, knew what was really going on, and hence why Sheriff Pope, when he was going and talking to Ethan, telling him, like, well, yeah, like, when you finally find out the truth, like, man, is it really just gonna blow your mind kind of thing. So Ethan is to find out that Dr. Jenkins is not really Dr. Jenkins. His name is David. The exact scientist that Megan had mentioned before was the person who started out this whole project. So Dr. Jenkins is to reveal himself as David, as this scientist, and so David then goes on and takes Ethan to this complex to show Ethan how the town is to really work, how they are going on and putting together things like clothes, food, drink, so on and so forth. And so, but the first thing that David is to really break it to Ethan of what the real truth is, and is to tell him that, like, yeah, like, these are the aberrations, and like, this is what's really going on, and basically we're several years into the future. So having David break everything to Ethan and telling him the truth, and then flying him to this compound to show him everything, but we'll get to that in the next episode. So We have Teresa talking to Wayne Johnson, and Teresa is in the hospital wanting to try to figure out how she can secretly talk to Wayne, and Nurse Pam comes in and is like, "Oh, excuse me," and so that kind of breaks up the conversation. But so Teresa's to ask Wayne, like, how he got here, and he got here through a car accident, and so Teresa's to realize that everyone who comes here is from off of a car accident. It seems that that's the pattern, and eventually Teresa's to look in and start to question Big Bill if everyone that comes here is because of a car accident, one or another, possibly having Teresa thinking that this may be some possible afterlife of sorts, that everyone had died, because that's always the same conclusion that everyone makes in these kind of shows or movies, when eventually you are to assume like the worst. So we have Teresa that is to go on and talk to Wayne at his home while she's showing off this home. So she goes on and is to put on this washer and dryer, and is to talk to Wayne to ask him like what he saw before he got here. And so Wayne was to supposedly see himself in some like cryo tube of sorts, or some tube. And Teresa's like, "Wow, that's fascinating. Like, I don't know anybody that's gone on and told me that yet. So, like, I'm not quite sure what that means." And so we reveal within the next episode what that really means. So, within the next episode, because I think everything in episode 5 is technically covered, so let's go into the next episode. So, Ethan is to talk to David, and is to tell him that David was to have known of a possible evolution happening where Homo sapiens would eventually turn into these aberrations. And so, with David being the only one who possibly knew that and knew the timetable of when exactly this would happen, David started to want to go on, and before trying to avoid this crisis, he and his sister, who is actually Nurse Pam, were to decide to go on and put plans in place to try to prevent this whole next stage of evolution happening. But it seems that nobody really believed him, and so instead, David was to go on and start choosing a number of people that did believe him and did think that whatever he was saying was true. And so David took a ton of volunteers, as well as also a ton of people that will find out that Sheriff Pope was to go on and randomly find, and was to forcibly choose these people because he knew how much of a benefit they would be in his new world. So Pope goes on and is to just be some security guard at David's science facility. And so David is to mention to Pope that he knows every single thing about him, ins and outs, and like his drug use from times before and all these things. And so Pope is to say like, well, yeah, like that is true, and that Pope had before spent some time in prison, some real time. And David is telling Pope, it's like, well, you know what, like, I'm not going to fire you, because that's immediately what Pope is to think. It's like, hey, yeah, like, if you just give me 2 weeks, like, I'll go on and, like, I'll be out of your hair. And David is like, no, like, that's not what I want you to do. Instead, David wanted Pope to go on and start collecting all of these people to eventually be cryogenically taken and being put away before this crisis event actually legitimately happened. So we have Pope who goes on and is to find this man. I believe his last name is Keen, and is to go on and chloroform Keen. And let me pause here for just a second. Charles Keen. So, because come to find out, Keen was to also be a guy that David was kind of looking at. And so eventually by the end of the episode, we have Charles Keen, who's coming out of this cryogenic stasis, and is going to be an additional part to this town. So we have David that's going on and explaining to Ethan all of what had happened from a number of years ago, and then David had been cryogenically preserved, as well as a number of people throughout 2,000 years, and then they awoke to come back to then put the Wayward Pines town together, knowing what all they would need to put this whole thing together, and knowing all the people that they had gone on and were to be volunteers who were going to be willing to put all of this together. So, because we have David who is to go on and see like his world turn into a post-apocalyptic world, where David is to look throughout his town and start seeing that there is to be fires in vehicles and people rioting and crazy things happening. And so, come to find out, Ethan asked David, it's like, well, hey, why can't you go on and just tell everyone the truth all at once? Like, why just kind of feel like they're all been abducted for so long in this town? Why not just all tell them the truth all at once? And David is like, well, here's the thing. Come to find out, Ethan, the place where he is to be held in is Wayward Pines Group B. And there was a Group A where David did go on and tell everyone the truth, and everyone just decided to take their own lives because they had all been abducted and they all had been lied to, and eventually they realized that their world, all that they knew, all the ones that they loved, were dead, and like the world as they know it might have just been over. So David is to say that like a kid can go on and accept this truth where an adult can't, because an adult has gone on and had been like on the world or in the world so long that they can't accept that kind of truth, but a kid could. So, because we find out that in this story, that if like an adult were to have been told what the truth is, a family had gone on and all went into their garage, put themselves all in the car, and put a hose into their car, and went on to eventually just drown themselves in their own car, in their garage, and die because of the truth, because they couldn't handle it. So basically saying that like not everyone can handle the real truth, and so basically there's only a certain portion of people that really know what's going on. And so David is showcasing Ethan the cryogenic tubes of all these people that have been kind of released and stuff like that, and Ethan is to see within this kind of sealed cage of sorts, is like thick glass and whatever, what a apparition really looks like up close. And Ethan is to kind of look and see what this thing is, and it just smacks against the glass, and Ethan's like, whoa, oh my god. So David is to go on and show Ethan everything, and so I'm assuming at some point that Ethan is going to go on and probably tell his wife the truth and everything, and kind of tell like Ethan, or have Ethan kind of tell Ben, it's like, well, yeah, like Ben can kind of back me up on all that he has found out about, because like he knows the truth also. So also within this episode, we have Kate, who is getting a delivery from a guy named, I believe his name is Ted, who's going on and delivering this box to Kate. And I guess supposedly Ted was supposed to get a box from Peter's desk, but he feels very awkward about trying to get it now, because come to find out, Peter was to be a part of their revolution, or a part of their rebellion, because Kate is to go on with Harold and say that they're going to try to get out of here, and whatever happens is what they're just going to deal with. And if Harold's wife is still alive somewhere out there, then Kate tells Harold that they're going to deal with that. That eventually they may have to go their separate ways, or eventually something's going to work out, or but Kate is plotting a rebellion, hence why Kate is to want to make amends with Teresa and say, like, hey, like, right now, like, no matter our past, like, we need to be, like, friends, regardless. To the point of Kate wanting to speak to Teresa in a place to just kind of, like, not tell her that she's plotting a rebellion, but having Kate just go on and say, like, hey, no matter what our past is, like, right now, like, we need to be friends. Because eventually Kate is probably going to use Teresa as well as Ethan to try to plot a rebellion. And David is telling Ethan within this episode that he knows that there is a rebellion out there somewhere. He doesn't know where it is, what it is exactly, but he knows there's something plotting and going on. And so Ethan is to tell David, it's like, well, yeah, I'm definitely going to go on, and I'm going to protect these people, and I'm going to go on and like figure out what this rebellion is, and I'm going to go on and protect you. And and Ethan's like, yeah, like, I'm going to do whatever I need to, like, whatever it takes. So I think Ethan is probably just going to go on and tell everybody the truth, tell everyone what's really going on, and then start weeding out certain people that he doesn't think that he can 100% trust. And that will be whoever is to come up with the idea of continuing on to do this whole reckoning thing and to kill people off. I think the whole reckoning thing is the real reason why people are wanting to get the heck out of there, or wanting to rebel, because they think that their lives may be at risk whenever they're in this town. So yeah, so with that said, man, is there just a lot to go on and talk about within these episodes. But hopefully, in a roundabout way, I covered most of this stuff. There's a lot, especially going on in episode 6, of what all David had done with Pope and talked to him. And also, we had David, who was with Nurse Pam and had found Megan Fisher, and Megan Fisher was to go on and want to volunteer to help out David because she was like, well, I don't know how much like a hypnotherapist could really help you, but like I believe in what you're saying. Like I believe in what you're trying to do. And so we, of course, had David that's like, okay, like we're picking that girl. Like she's gonna be with us. Like if anybody who's gonna believe what we're saying, um, like yeah, let's take as many people as we can. Because David was showing Ethan all the people that are like in certain parts of this complex. There's certain people who are just doing clothes. There are certain people that are coming up with food sources and beverage sources and so on and so forth. Um, and so there was one scene in episode 6 that I'm like, oh my god, they did this scene in reverse. Because if you see where David is walking around and all of a sudden this car is on fire, you can tell that that scene was done in reverse weirdly. Because what happens is instead of the flames kind of going out of the car, the flames are kind of going inside of the car. It's very weird. So I'm like, oh, they must have like reversed that shot because you can tell by how the flames aren't like they aren't moving correctly. So that shot was oddly done, and they flipped it or they reversed it or something, because our character was moving this way and probably not this way. So they like didn't know what direction the shot was going to do, so they just reversed the shot because you can tell by the flames. I thought that was really interesting. How he kind of pushed that up. Oh well, like hey, like probably some people wouldn't have noticed it, but I just weirdly did. So, but yeah, so we have Harold that is going on and taking a bunch of these jewelry boxes and putting bombs in them. Eventually, like setting up that they already have like some rebellion planned. And I guess what the box was that Ted was supposed to get was a box full of bombs. So I guess Peter must have been the demolition guy who was going on and putting these like homemade bombs together for these guys to go on and put these boxes into these jewelry items. So eventually, when the time is right, they can go and put these bombs in front of this gate and try to get the heck out of there. Just kind of detonate them all at once. So, with that said, I think that goes on to possibly. We also had Teresa who was talking to this other realtor that was going to quit. She quit because she was kind of ticked off that Teresa had kind of swooped in and got her job. And so Henrietta was to just quit this job. And Big Bill is kind of telling Henrietta, it's like, well, hey, like don't go on and don't just leave because this girl just kind of swooped in and took your position. And Henrietta is like, well, like, it's really not that also. So Henrietta goes on and is to kind of pack her things. And Teresa is telling Henrietta, it's like, well, hey, I didn't really want this job. Like, I wanted you to take it, but he weirdly just gave it to me anyways. And Henrietta is like, well, like, it's not all about that. Like, because eventually Henrietta was talking to Peter, and Peter was going on and talking about this weird, strange thing called Lot 33, and like Henrietta didn't know what that meant. So we have Teresa who is trying to go on and possibly think that this is like something on the map. So we have Teresa that is going on and asking Big Bill that there is a certain lot in this town that doesn't have anything there. And so Teresa is to ask Big Bill about it. It's like, you know what, this part of this map, like would be a real plush place to put something there, and it's not. And so Teresa's asking Big Bill about it, and Big Bill is telling Teresa, it's like, did I tell you to go and look at a map? Like, did I tell do I tell you to go on and do these things? Like, if I wanted you to do them, like I would ask you to do them, and so I didn't. So you don't do them. Just don't. Like, so that immediately is probably gonna like go on and have Teresa lose sleep at night. She's like, well, wait a minute, like, what was she talking about? Like, why was this so important? Why was this place so empty on this map? I have to go and figure it out. And eventually, I'm assuming Teresa is going to tell Ethan about this after he comes back from him eventually getting his arm wrapped up by Nurse Pam, and Ethan finding out that Nurse Pam is actually Dr. Jenkins or David's sister, and how they kind of plan this whole thing themselves. And so we're going on and thinking, like, also Peter's story, how Peter was to go on and say that Peter had one night where he was dating Nurse Pam, and then come to find out when Peter woke and found Nurse Pam there again, but she was much older. That makes so much sense now. So I bet, I put money on it, that all of these volunteers, even David, was to have possibly gone on and taken people without their knowledge to cryogenically keep them frozen. And so everybody was in on it. Everyone who volunteered had also all abducted all of these people, which I'm like, man, that's got to be some shady as F stuff. Like, as if this is all like the Wicker Man. And because eventually, if anybody has seen the Nicolas Cage movie, The Wicker Man, like, you may not know what I'm saying, but really, it's all about like trying to figure out a way to bring people to this unique place to then like abduct them there and keep them forever. And I'm just like, man, that is some crazy, that's some shady stuff. But when looking at it, like, yeah, like all these people might have really been a part of all that, more so than just Pope going on and abducting all these people. But with that said, I think I'm going to get out of here because I feel that I've gone on and said most of all of the stuff that I need to go on and say throughout these episodes. Let me know if there's something that I forgot, because I'm sure that there is. There's probably a billion things, because there's a lot to pull away from these episodes, because this is the big reveal of everything. This is the big moment. This is kind of like WandaVision, where like the first number of episodes were just like, what the heck is going on? And then finally in WandaVision, like by like the mid part of the season, they finally go on and tell you what's really going on, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is weird, this is wacky. And so like this show is now like not that different. But yeah, so Ben is gonna go on and is to know the truth, and he's gonna have to like hold on to the truth. And so we have Ben that is with these other kids, and they're all going into this one room where they're all going to get these candles lit, and they're all going to be like slamming and banging and whatever to make these sounds to just welcome these kids in to this weird, goofy kids cult that sounds very odd, but it's the truth. But also, like, they went after the kids because the kids could be easily, like, corruptible besides the adults. Like, yeah, you can have Dr. Jenkins or David say whatever he wants, but, like, to go on and have these kids be told, like, hey, you're the real future here. You're the real future of Wayward Pines. Like, basically, if you told, like, these kids, like, well, no, you're, you're, you're a superhero, like, you're a god to us, and, like, I'm sure they would go on and just be like, heck yeah, that sounds great. So really it's all about like the next generation of kids rather than going on and relying on like the wise or experienced or whatever. Um, just because they have gone on and done this before and it didn't turn out the way that they wanted to. It's like, well, maybe when you kind of look at like multiple different decisions, multiple different ways you can approach something, maybe the way that they had approached it from that other time didn't work, but maybe if they could have gone on and persuaded people another way or this or that, maybe it would have worked this time, but they just decided to not go that route. Maybe they just decided just like, no, we're only going to tell a certain portion of people the real truth, but keep everything else from everyone else. So that just seemed odd. So with that said, I think I'm just gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Let me in the know, or let me in the know. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about these episodes. Whether you're just like, man, yeah, like I like these episodes. They were really cool. Because I know a lot of people might have watched this quicker than I did, or like had watched the whole show and are kind of just going back and just kind of reliving these episodes or whatever. Because more than likely, it seems that this show is popular now, but I'm maybe not quick to the draw to get to it because other new releases are happening, other things are happening, and like I haven't done as many videos as I probably would have in the past. So that's my bad. That's on me. But eventually, I hope to at some point get these out. So, with that said, hopefully everyone is to go on and continue watching these, and then I'll go on and continue to review them and do them because I actually liked this show, anyways. So with that said, goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.